Uganda goes to the elections next year, and a lot has been said about the elections in Uganda. And if you've been following the Ugandan issues that have gone, that have been in the news, you will know straight away that it's going to be, what kind of election it's going to be. Now, there are several presidential candidates, obviously among them Democratic Party, Robert Mao, Kizza Besigye, Forum for Democratic Change, General Mugisha Muntu with another party, Alliance for the National Transformation, and of course there's a young man who's upcoming by the name of Bobi Wine. So, and most important of all, Uganda's strongman, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who's been in power for the last 34 years, is standing again. Now, what have we got in mind? In today's program, I've got my special guest, who is Mr. Moses Kimuli, who is the spokesperson for the National Resistance Movement. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Stephen.
Right, there is a lot said about people power. I want to start straight with that. People power. There's a lot said about the alliances that will come in, and there is a lot. Museveni has been in power for the last 7 years. For the last 34 years. Can he fear anybody now? Is this a threat at all to him, or is one of those things that, one of the hurdles that he's going to overcome?
So first and foremost, good evening, viewers. My name is Moses Kimuli, as I've been introduced. I'm the spokesperson for NRM UK chapter, and I'm also the interim spokesperson for NRM Diaspora League. Now, back to your question. I think the main thing is that Ugandans haven't seen anything different from the people power you're mentioning, and DP and FDC.
Yeah.
When I say something different, I mean, I think their goal is to remove President Yoweri Museveni. They haven't proved to Ugandans how they are going to change the issues that are affecting the ordinary Ugandans.
Okay.
They haven't informed Ugandans how they're going to change things, like how they're going to work on things like unemployment, things like the better healthcare system. Now, to a Ugandan, they'll be asking questions. How is someone who is 34 years, the Bobi Wine you're mentioning, are going to come, take up power and then change things in the country without the experience?
He's not on his own. There's a team, and secondly, there's that fact that the teams are going to stand together. They may have one major political organization, one major political party, all the parties. I don't know how far that one has gone. Maybe you're more informed about that than me.
I think looking at all the political parties, and as we know, People Power is not a political party.
Yeah.
I think everyone has got a different agenda. If you look at the last few elections in Uganda, Dr. Kizza Besigye has lost. And again, he's lost because he hasn't said anything different. To me, the ordinary Ugandans want to hear, how are you going to change these things? What means are you going to, using what means are you going to change the things that are affecting ordinary Ugandans? And if you go to, when I'm in Uganda, I tend to go to the rural areas, and I speak to the ordinary Ugandans, and most of them still have faith in President Museveni, because when he came to power, the things he's worked on actually are evident. Things like the infrastructure, the roads. He's worked on security. I remember in 1986, when I was about 6 years, I remember we had to run and seek refuge in a hospital with, and when we came back, everything had been stolen by the then soldiers of the regime. So President Museveni has worked on those things, and I think he's still working on more that actually Ugandans are waiting for him to work on. The healthcare system, he's working on that. One of the things he's done is that as a result of security, we are attracting more investors in the healthcare system. You've seen Aga Khan is going to build one of the best hospitals in Uganda, and they're working on that. So instead of people flying to India or flying to the US or flying to England, we will have some specialized treatment in Uganda. But that is all because of the security. So the healthcare system will be improved. The unemployment, again, because of the security, a lot of people are, the stability, a lot of people are investing in Uganda. A lot of investors are coming to invest in Uganda. Well, I will mention one area, Nakaseke, where a lot of people have built up factories, and these are employing Ugandans.
Can I say something here?
Yeah.
34 years.
Yes.
He's been in office
Yeah.
for 34 years.
Yeah.
He wants another 5 years. He's not the same man who came in.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's done whatever you're saying he's done. But the fact remains that what other people are seeing is probably what the party is not seeing. Is there no one else within the party who could easily take over? Because the period, the man who came in and the man who is now in office are two different people. You could say the years in office have taken their toll on him. I'm not saying he's that old or something, but at the end of the day, the longer somebody stays in one, is there nobody else within the national party?
I personally believe, and I think many of our members in our party believe, President Museveni has got better with age.
Oh, really?
Because when President Museveni and the NRM government came into power in 1986, Uganda's problems were not the same problems we are facing now.
All right.
I can remind you of when we had terrorist attack from Somalia.
Yeah.
And we had the instability in southern Sudan and Congo. And all these people were actually attacking, all those countries were being used by people destabilizing Uganda. As we speak now, Ugandan forces actually in Somalia trying to help with the peace. Because if Somalia is not peaceful, Uganda won't be peaceful. As you know, we have a lot of refugees from Somalia. We have a lot of refugees from the neighboring countries.
Yeah.
So, when President Museveni came into power in 1986, the problems Uganda had have actually multiplied.
Really?
And when I say that, I mean he's being faced by more and more challenges on a daily basis. And personally, I think he's now dealing with more, and it's actually got better than how he was in 1986.
The problem I can see here is from the statistics I have, the unemployment is one of the biggest problems Uganda is having at the moment. And the youth unemployment is probably one of the biggest at the moment, not just in Uganda, but the entire African continent. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Nigeria, as I had a Nigerian here a couple of weeks ago. And youth unemployment has reached its highest level in Africa, and something has got to be done on that. And there is a mass movement going on within the national resistance movement itself because of the recent donations the president gave to Catherine Kusasira and Bobby Cool, and that has caused some kind of instability within the youth wing of the national resistance movement. How is he going to deal with that?
I think
because if these people, if money is going to only these top stars and it's not going to the lower, to the people who are actually doing a lot for the party, then it can cause some kind of instability. Yeah,
I think some of these stories, as you know, the media actually hype some of these stories.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. What I believe is the NRM party is the biggest party in Uganda.
of course.
And it's got the most members. Most. When we vote, we get the biggest percentage.
Okay.
Of late, there have been people who have come up with stories, I think, just like anywhere else, to attract media attention, and they have come up with this.
Yeah, but
story.
this wasn't a media story, because it's there online as well, where the youth wing of the movement itself had its meeting in Kampala, and the members of the party themselves were insisting, say, look, we need to talk to the chief executives of the party, because this thing has angered us as a whole, because they were promised money, they were promised things that are not happening. So it's not outside the party. It's not the media. It's actually there. It's a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the three people you've mentioned, Baby Cool, Catherine Kusasira, and
Yeah.
someone. Well, there was a problem in the ghetto.
Yeah,
Where people were not employed. As we know, most of these people have come from what we say ghetto life.
Yeah.
And these are people that can be used to transform the lives of people in the ghetto. A lot of people have talent in the ghetto. A lot of people have lost hope. And these are the people who can actually motivate them in different ways. And I think that money is being used fairly, and there's going to be accountability from these individuals. I don't believe that this money is just being given out without. I think these people have to account for how they've used this money.
How they use the money.
Yeah, and I think what we need to do is to give them time so that they can actually come back and show us the results. Because as you know, the NRM party it works on results, and that's why we voted every election, because we actually show Uganda this is what we have done. It's too early to actually start asking for accountability and what kind of change these three individuals you've mentioned have actually implemented. But I think we will need to give them time, and then at some point, we'll ask for results and accountability.
Now, one of the biggest problems the whole of Africa faces is corruption.
Yes.
And Uganda is not immune to it. There's corruption, and it's at its highest speed, not just in Uganda, but the entire African continent. And even the president himself started a corruption unit in his office to try and stamp out. But over the years, so many people have been connected to corruption, and names are mentioned. Nobody has ever been caught, and nobody has ever been sent to prison. Could this be a major problem in the future, not just for the party, but for the president as well?
I think I'll refer. I've got a friend of mine. I've got a friend of mine who's a judge. Who has always told me you'd rather see 100 criminals on a street than sending 10 innocent individuals in prison. So meaning that everyone wants these people to be sent to prison, but with the right evidence.
Okay.
Rather than actually sending people to prison for the sake. And you've seen it in different countries where people are actually being sent to prison without the necessary evidence. What the president has done is brought in systems. I think you've heard of the State House Anti-Corruption, headed by Lieutenant Colonel Nakalema. He's tried to empower the Ugandan police to do the corruption. So the systems are coming up, and I believe with time, as you know, there's corruption everywhere, but I think with time, the corruption levels in Uganda will go down. So again, we have to give it time.
But
to see that these systems...
It's been 34 years.
It's been 34 years, but we've got, as I said, when President Museveni came and then NRM came to power, Uganda had different problems. He solved, I think he solved 70%, and he has to deal with the 30% if and when he took over power. And it needs time. I mean, 34 years is too small for a country that's been faced by rebellions of Akoni, Lakwena, the West Nile, and then the instability from Rwanda, Somalia, Southern Sudan. So I think for the 34 years is done 70%.
What is meant to be doing here?
So as you know, the roads now. I remember when I was 6 years, I used to go to Kabale to visit someone, and it took us almost a day. But now traders can come from Kabale and return with goods in the same day, or from Arua. The roads, the security, as I mentioned, the health, as you're aware, Mulago Hospital is now being built to this international standard. So things will be done with time. For the health, actually, Uganda is more of not treating but preventing diseases. One of the countries that is actually polio-free. So they are preventing hospital admissions rather than treating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, There is something which has always been a common feature among Africans, I should say, the African leaders. It becomes difficult because it's like we are looking at a party and we are looking at an individual as the president, and we are more or less seeing that it becomes impossible for us to look behind us and see what if something happens, because this is a common feature. We wouldn't want to wake up one morning, God forbid, something happens to the president, and we're looking at who is the next president of Uganda, because we've had the same issue for a number of years. At least in Kenya, they had Moi when Kenyatta was there for long, and he was vice president for a long time. The president has had a number of vice presidents, and the issue is, you as a party member and a person who's been within the system for quite a long time, who do you see as the next person who could easily take over the presidency in Uganda if there is anything that happens? Or even if one day Museveni wakes up and he says he doesn't want to continue, who comes in as the next president?
I think as the interim government, we have a lot of people
who can come in,
capable of standing back.
Because the fear would be the power struggle.
I always use the same statement which is common in Uganda. I always want to leave issues for generals to generals. I believe
issues of generals to the generals.
I believe President Museveni couldn't have gone to the bush and led with the 27 people he went to the bush with and come out, and he has no plan of what will happen next. So I believe, and I think everyone in the NRM party believes he has got the right answer, and at the right time he will. And I think he's aware of all these things happening, because I don't think he's not aware that anything can happen to him naturally. So I believe he's got the answer, and as I said, we trust that at the right time he's got the right plan.
But President Obama once said, the biggest problem we face, I still go back to that a little bit, is the fact that we have weaker parties. If you look at the political parties in Uganda, one would really say, I hardly see a stronger party. They're all there, they're existing. When UPC was in office, it was a strong party because it was in office. When it left office, it went down. It happened to Nkrumah's party in Ghana. It has happened to other parties. No, leaders leave parties weaker, in a sense, when they stay longer, and when they have been, it doesn't give them the strategy to have to groom the next leader. I'm fearing that with the National Resistance Movement. He may have an answer, but the party has stood strongly behind him as the strong man. The chances are we probably don't have. It becomes difficult to get a strong person coming out of that when he didn't take the seat when the other one was still around. Don't you think that would be one of the things that you as members would be advising the party to do?
I think every year or towards elections, we have the National Executive Committee.
Okay.
And these are people from the different branches
of the
different organs of the party.
And
they always sit and have this discussion with the president, who is our chairman. So we have the agenda of what to talk about. What I believe that the question of who will succeed him hasn't come up, because I believe every member is actually contented that at the moment we are happy for him to lead us through the next elections. Once those questions come up, I do have the belief in the top other party members who will bring up that topic at that point. But I believe for now, everyone in the party is contented that President Museveni will lead us, our chairman will lead us through the next election.
Now, there have been differences over the years, and different political parties have come up. Besigye has been there. Of course, he failed. Moi has been there. All the parties that have come in, and the president has always won. But the issue of the youth movement now, this is a much more stronger one, and which I can see even within the National Resistance Movement, because you can't ignore the youth. It's there.
Yep.
And it's an outstanding issue, which is going to happen sooner rather than later. I don't know whether there is a strategy in there to deal with it, especially with the young man called Bobby Wine at the moment.
So the young man called Bobby Wine has not been tested.
It has not been tested yet.
And at some point, Ugandans will know his weakness. If he's actually, if he's asked to prove me to show Ugandans how he's going to change things that are affecting the orderly Ugandans is talking about.
Yeah.
Because you can actually talk about unemployment, and you can talk about how you remove Museveni to fight unemployment.
Yeah.
But how are you? Where are you going to get the resources? If you're trying to tell someone that I'm going to do this and this and this and this, you have to tell them actually I'm going to use these means to do that. Bobby Wine, I think at this point he doesn't have the strategies to change things, because one, he's someone who has only been in politics for 2 years. He's got no systems. He's got no. I think people are using him for now. A lot of cultural institutions, a lot of religious leaders, a lot of organizations. I think a lot of people are using him for their own agenda and for their own benefit. And I think his support is hyped because he thinks all these people coming up and talking about him for their. I think you've seen some cultural institutions saying, I will support so and so who will give me this and this. For things they've been asking for years.
Yeah.
But I believe they're just using this to pass a message to the president and to say, by the way, if we get this, we will actually be behind you.
Yeah.
So he hasn't been tested. He's been on international media. I've been following him. He hasn't actually come up with anything different from the messages, the Maos, and the rest that have been defeated by the president. Because all I think every ordinary Ugandan wants to hear is, all right, you've removed President Museveni. How are you going to remove unemployment? How are you going to work on the unemployment issue? So when you look at, say for example, where we live now, how are they dealing with unemployment?
Yeah.
Right? And you're looking at this, the structures they're putting in place. They're putting these courses. They're creating this and this and this. As Bobby Wine, how are you going to work on that? I don't think he's got the necessary. At some point, if he's taken on stage and asked these questions, he's got no answer. And I think it will be the same. The Sebagalas, the Besiges, when the wave came, and they went because they did not actually prove to Ugandans how they're going to change things. I think that's important.
I think what I have to say here is the differences. Of course, I watched his interview with Al Jazeera, and I think a similar question to this came up, and the way he tackled it in a sense, because he was saying that, look, yes, I may lack the experience of having been into government, and the president had that experience, which he never had. But the fact that I can get the people in places who have been in these experiences, I can get the experienced people who have been in government and use them to my advantage. He said that. And secondly, I think there is something that is to do with the Western world where we are, here in UK, in America and other parts, who are literally behind him in one way or another. Couldn't this be some kind of a threat to the national resistance movement?
I'm aware that there are some, I wouldn't say, I think there are some organizations in the West and America trying to use him for their own agenda. I want to mention the organizations, but I believe some of them have tried to have a few things change in Uganda. And they've been met by resistance.
Of course, yeah.
And now they are sponsoring this young man, hoping that once he's elected president, whatever they want to see in countries like developing countries happens. But again, Uganda is a country that's got its own culture. I mean, the good thing is that we have resisted some of these cultural practices. from the West and America, and we will still resist them. What we're doing in Somalia is being appreciated by the Americans, is being appreciated by the British, because as you know, the Al-Shabaab were training in Somalia. The UPDF has managed to eliminate some of these training camps. So the person in London is safe, thanks to someone thanks to Ugandan soldiers in Somalia, fighting hard to eliminate these terrorists. And I believe the West and America do appreciate what the UPDF are doing in those countries that were formerly occupied by terrorists. I don't know how they would eliminate someone like President Museveni, who's doing all of this for the entire world, to replace him with someone who is actually a civilian and who has actually been in politics for 2 years.
Yeah, but I think it's the question of simply replacing him, or the question of looking at it and disregarding it from that point of view is an issue. Is a very different issue, in the sense that my main worry at the moment is that leaving the parties weaker is. I come back to that question most of the time, because I look at a failure to have a proper change of leadership sometimes leads to weaker parties, to the weaknesses within the parties. And I think, while you say that the party itself will sit down and make a choice on this, and the president has already got an idea, but somewhere when people don't see, maybe this is what is driving the people away from the party, because if they don't see a proper successor somewhere, this could be a major issue in itself, because we wouldn't really like to be governed by a weaker party somewhere in future, because when this happens, there is a lot of chaos that comes in. Yeah. So I think that's why when we look at party members and say, you have got to take this voice across. So we need the change shouldn't really be simply to change the leader, no, but the kind of strategy that happens. But it shouldn't happen because of a reason. It should happen because it comes as a natural kind of, as a process where someone says, look, I think I've had enough. Like in, President Nyerere in Tanzania, Joseph Chisanu in Mozambique, and Sam Nanyumba in Namibia. There is that strategy of saying, look, I think after 35 years, or after, this period, I think, but that comes again when it's you, the party member. That's why I'm putting that across to you, rather than to the others who are not here. What's your opinion on that?
I think the democracy. I think the democracy in our party is actually what other parties should be following.
Yeah.
Because we sit down every year and decide who's going to be a flag bearer.
Okay.
And we vote.
Yeah.
And we've got the structures. We've got the chairman, our president. We've got the vice chairman. We've got the different people in the party. So our democracy is clear. That's why you're not seeing the fighting in DP. You're not seeing similar fighting in the parties like you've seen. There's the People's Government led by USJ, and there's the FDC, and now there's the Muntu, three out of one party now. And you've seen the wrangles in DP, people fighting. One of, I think, the vice chairman was actually beaten. You're not seeing all that in our party. Because we want to show the Ugandans that actually the NRM party has got a democracy. And we do that by having meetings and voting peacefully, who is supposed to be our flag bearer. But if you're looking at now, as I said, FDC, now we have three main contenders. We have Muntu, who's come out from FDC. Dr. Chizabe SJ, and we've got Mr. Amriat. So three people in FDC. And then DP, you can actually, I think if you watch the news before we came, you're seeing the wrangles are still going on. I don't know what happened with UPC, but I haven't heard anything about UPC for years. I'm not sure if it's still existing.
No, it is existing.
I believe that
it is
the
still
people
existing.
who actually in UPC or who are in UPC have actually
Joined,
I think
joined,
joined
NRM.
I think I've joined NRM because the party's been quiet. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So, as we head to 2021, I don't think anyone is going to take FDC serious with 3 containers coming up. DP with all these wrangles.
Yeah.
UPC with, I don't know, the leaders exist. People power is actually a group of people that you're seeing crossing to NRM every day. I think their problem, most of them, is if you look at President Museveni went to the bush. He spent 5 years fighting for the Ugandans.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, people power has been in place. I think you know how many people have crossed. So it's showing they have no cause. They're actually fighting for no cause. People went to the bush, left their jobs. Like Dr. Chiza Besigye left his job in Nairobi to go and fight for a right cause.
Yeah.
We have people in people power singing this today and tomorrow singing that. So they have no cause. And I think by 2021, I believe it will probably be Honorable Chagulanyi, the only one in people power. So no one is going to take such people serious. And again, we will win with the same margin.
So you don't see a threat of say people power, DP, Alliance for Change and Democrat, you don't see a joint political movement. If all of them say, for example, we are standing behind Mugisa Muntu, for example, or we are standing behind Bobby Wine, and we come to a consensus and we shall form a government if we all win. You don't see that political movement making a major change if they all come together and say the 6 or so parties that are trying to stand, if they all come together and say we are forming one political movement and that movement is going to have one candidate, can't that be a threat to NRM?
I think, as I said to you, there must be a reason why President Museveni went with 27 men into the bush and fought a war for 5 years and no one deserted it.
Yeah, but he didn't have only 5 men.
When you go back to
others joined him.
When you go back to my argument,
if
FDC, DP, and people power you mentioned and UPC had a cause, and Ugandans actually can listen to their cause, I think they would have a threat. But because they have no cause, I think each party is fighting its own.
All right. Yeah.
Meaning that no one is actually willing to come together because they don't have this. I don't know what no one has actually listened to what they want. I think all are saying we need to remove President Museveni. As
that's the cause.
The ordinary Ugandan doesn't want to hear removing President Museveni as a cause.
All right. Yeah.
The ordinary Ugandan wants to hear how are you going to improve on things that are affecting the ordinary Ugandans.
Okay. That's
removing President Museveni is not going to create jobs for all
employment.
Ugandans.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to tackle the unemployment issue? And I think the song of President Museveni has to go is actually a common song to all Ugandans, and no one is going to vote for anyone saying that. I want to listen to someone who's going to change. Who's going to say, I'm going to change the healthcare system through this and this means, and these are the resources I'm going to use. Because remember, to change anything, you have to have the resources.
Yeah.
And you have to prove to people how you're going to do this. I would like to ask Honorable Chagulanyi, how are you going to create an employment for the 42 million Ugandans you keep talking about who are unemployed? And what are you going to do? Are you going to borrow money from America and build more industries? How are you going to do this? And how are you going to do different from how they're doing it now? And I think those are the questions Ugandans want to hear.
Yeah.
Ugandans want answers from those questions. And until someone comes up and answers those questions, the NRM and President Museveni will still be in power. Because actually we are showing that we work on that. We're working on that. Things like Operation Wealth Creation have come up.
Okay.
And
Now, So as far as you're concerned, the joint party system can't work. It won't. It can't.
If you're going to, I used to go with the hunters when I was young, and each person had a role to play. There are people who would hold nets. There are people who would make the noises.
Yeah.
There are people who would spear the animal. There are people who will go looking for the animal. But if you got hunters who are all after spearing the animal, then you have no people. I mean, you can't hunt. FDC, UPC, people power, whatever, are hunting, each going different ways, not knowing how to. So there's no way they're going to hunt the animal, and until they do that.
Okay. Now, there is an issue of defectors, defectors from the NRM, because I didn't know this until I did a bit of my research, and then I also found out that obviously, when I look at the main political parties, FDC and Alliance for Democratic Change, that is FDC, and Mugisa Muntu's party and the other party, most of the defectors who are currently trying to oustit President Museveni actually came from his own party. So when you look at that, couldn't that be a major issue as well as we go along? Because if he gets more defectors of that nature, especially at a higher level, can that affect the structure of the party?
I actually do thank President Museveni for being a very kind and patient man, because
you love him, you
know what happens to defectors in neighboring countries. If you read the newspapers very well, you've seen what has happened
in Rwanda.
You've seen what has happened to. I won't mention the country, but you've seen what has happened to those countries.
We leave it at that.
So the fact that your former army commander is now leading a party to
take you out of
power, and you're actually working with him, and he's still safe, or whatever. It proves to Ugandans that actually the man fought for 5 years and he's actually brought the democracy and the peace that wasn't there. Because I remember the days of the late Idi Amin. People were being killed every day, and they would find them in rivers and wherever. Now we have people fighting President Museveni, and they're actually in Uganda, enjoying the same peace like everyone else. And I think that actually scores more points for him, because the likes of Dr. Chiza Besigye and General Muntu probably wouldn't be there if it was, if you remember the regimes that President Museveni fought. So that is another bonus for him.
So there's no general worry about defectors, because remember, defectors take a junk with them once they go. They're part of, even the late Biramo, who died recently, was one of those. So you have to have that. There's no worry within the party that can affect the outset of the party at all.
I think we've had defectors, and I think I know about 3 that have actually come back.
Okay.
I remember this Major Rabiyama who went to FDC and he's since come back to NRM. And I think once they realize that actually when they're out of the party, they realize how things are worse, most of them come back. And I think with time they will come back. As I said, they have no cause. If they had a cause, Ugandans will support them. But because when they go out there, they have no cause to change. Most of them will come back with time. And I think we're not worried about that. Because as a party, we still, for example, in the diaspora, we're still continuing with the mobilization, the recruitment. We are selling all the programs, NRM programs to the people. Through the NRM diaspora media department, we are actually informing the people of what is actually happening. Because as you know, a lot of people are here, don't usually travel back, so they're misinformed. And once we, through our programs on different media houses, we inform them of actually the truth. A lot of people will actually come back and say, this is the party we need to be with, because most people have actually invested back home and they don't want to see their investments go, I mean, in case there's war and what. So, So, I don't think we have a problem of defectors. I think we're happy for everyone who leaves, but we know things actually worse out there and people will come back.
Okay, talking about the diaspora issue. the diaspora issue,
Yeah.
and you being in the diaspora, obviously, as one of those in leadership. The issue came up last year about giving a vote to those who are outside the country. And ironically, it was the NRM who actually turned the entire thing down, because we were saying, look, let's give Ugandans who are abroad a chance to vote for the leadership in Uganda. The Nigerians have been trying that, and I think they're trying that in America as well, in other areas, whereby an overseas vote can also count. Yeah, okay, can also come up. Even Ghana has it now, but the government in the NRM government turned it down.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
I don't think. I think we shouldn't be rushing to do different things because other people are doing them. I think there should be structures in place. I think if you have a lot on your plate, then that's why things fail. Ghana's problems are not Uganda's problems.
Yeah.
As you know, our friends in Ghana have never. I don't think they have had a war. They haven't had civil wars like we've had in Uganda.
Yeah.
They haven't had to deal with all that. I think as we deal with those problems, we will get at some point after making sure we've dealt with those problems, with Uganda's problems affecting Uganda now. The major problems, if you look at the priorities we need to be doing, I think Ugandans in the diaspora voting is not a priority for NRM government now, and I don't believe that.
Yeah, but look at it this way. They're contributing, we are contributing nearly to almost half of the domestic growth in the country, because the money that is remitted back in Uganda, not just in Uganda, but throughout the entire African continent, comes from, Africans abroad. In fact, part of the domestic growth of nearly half of the countries in West Africa and even now in East Africa comes from people like us who are sending money out back home. So the thing is, I don't see it as, I see it as something which is given to us, which is a birthright, and which we can contribute and say, hang on a minute, we need to have a proper leader. You rightly said so, that Ugandans want, those abroad want peace in the country, and their investment in the countries, they want to make sure that those things are okay. So that voice has to exist. But if you're telling them that that voice, no, I can't allow that because we need to sort out other problems, then there's somewhere along the way you're denying their birthright.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it anyway, from my point of view.
I think one of the things they've done is that I think a lot has changed actually. Ugandans can now apply for dual citizenship.
Yeah, of course.
At the High Commission here, people can apply for Ugandan national IDs. We're encouraging more and more Ugandans to go back to Uganda, invest, and get involved in the development of Uganda.
That's why they need this.
What we do now is, I believe that Ugandans in the diaspora actually have a role to play on who wins the elections. And that's why people like us are here to inform people like you and others that actually this is where Uganda was and this is where Uganda is heading.
Yeah.
And when I make a phone call to my mom, the first thing I tell her is that, she tells me is that, oh, this is what is happening in Uganda.
Everything is okay.
Everything is okay. There's peace. There's. She always tells me stories when they used to go and stay, hide in a bush. But back to the point, I think at some point, Ugandans here will be able to vote. But let's put the systems in place. Let's have national IDs spread to all Ugandans in different countries, so that we know who's been registered. So we have the system to monitor who is actually who, rather than actually introducing voting without knowing who's really Ugandan, who is actually claiming to be Ugandan but not Ugandan. And then you realize that you actually introduce this without knowing how you're going to monitor that.
Yeah.
Through the national IDs, we'll be able to know that Mr. So-and-so is a Ugandan living in Newcastle. We can then use a system to know that this vote can be counted.
Yeah.
And that's why I think they're spreading all these national IDs around to all Ugandans in the diaspora.
Yeah.
Once we have a system where we can monitor who is who and where do they live, we can then involve, we probably, the government probably will think of that. But at the moment, without having a system that monitors who is a genuine Ugandan, you can't be introducing diaspora. I mean, people in the diaspora voting because you have no system to monitor that. Yeah, but let's put the system is in place. Let's not. You have a national ID. You vote in your house. You have 4 votes. So and so as 4 people in. Then you can monitor using the national IDs. Then we can go to another step. I think the national IDs is another step of realizing, of monitoring who is who, and it will help us in future for anything that comes up. Yeah.
Western influences.
Yeah.
Into if say for example, you've said the president has helped America, he has helped the British and so on, but the media powerhouses here and the influences that are actually going out, the voices are different from the voices that the party has, for example, for the leader, in the sense that they're saying, okay, we are looking at the length of time someone has been in office. And that is why they were advising, I think, President Kisanu, Nanyumba, I think, 1 or 2 presidents to travel to Uganda and try and sort of advise the president. Say, look, I think it's high time you get a successor in place. This, when I heard this for the first time, because they did this, I think, to Robert Mugabe as well, and he didn't listen to them. They sent 1 or 2 other ex-presidents to go to him and say, look, we've had our time. Our generation is gone. Let the new blood come in and do that. You think that could have an impact on President Museveni?
I haven't had...
Because when I saw the president's interview with Al Jazeera, he was actually referring to the party. Yeah. He was actually saying, look, the party is the one to make a choice and not me. So that is why I put that back to the party members. If it's the party, if the party tell him to go, he will go. But he says, as far as he's concerned, the party still needs him. Yeah. Yeah. So
I think, as I mentioned, every year we have the democracy in the NRM party should be the democracy other parties should be coping or working towards.
Okay.
We have meetings where we have elections. Now, towards elections, we have we meet and decide who should be our flag bearer. In most NRM, if not all, members are happy for President Museveni to still be a flag bearer. And as I said, at some point in the future, if things change, then we will have...
You know the reason why that when I look at that point, the question is, the point it drives is that when the party puts pressure on an individual, then it becomes difficult because he can't betray the party. So it's got to be, the decision has to be made. He might make a decision, but the party says no. Then in the end, it becomes difficult for him to make a decision because the party is pushing him. Yeah. That's how it seems like.
I think we as NRM, or we as Ugandans, have seen how things have changed in countries that people have forced. I'll give you an example of the late Colonel Gaddafi.
Yeah.
You've seen what happened to Libya when Gaddafi left. You've seen other countries that have actually suffered.
He actually didn't leave. He was forced out.
He was forced out.
Yeah.
You've seen what happened to Libya. I remember I traveled to Libya, and that was about 15 years ago. 20 years ago, I traveled to Libya, and I think an ordinary Libyan wouldn't have wanted to come to the
Europe.
UK.
Yeah.
And as you know, how many Libyans are now dying trying to cross to come to Europe. So we are aware that trying to force and change things for the sake of changing at times got repercussions.
Yeah.
And we've, as I said, we are aware of countries like Libya, Iraq, where presidents have been forced out and the country's gone down. So we don't want that to happen to Uganda.
But Museveni is not being forced out.
Yeah, I mean the party wouldn't support changing our major player at this point.
Yeah.
Because we still believe he's...
He can still change him and win, you know.
When time comes, we'll think of that.
Okay, now, if I look at the incomings and ingoings within the party, because we've seen the same faces over the years.
Yeah.
There haven't been any new faces. The ministers, most of them, are from the old school, the ones that have been in existence for quite some time. Any opinion on who is coming in after the elections? Any new ministers at all? A clue to that?
Again,
you could be one of them. You
again,
never know.
sorry. Again, the president, who's our chairman,
Yeah.
and his committee that decides who is a minister, who does what. I think we still have faith in these people, and we are sure they will make the right decisions for Ugandans, as they've always made the right decisions for Ugandans.
Yeah, but the problem, Mr. Kimuli, is the fact that sometimes when we see what happens in the newspapers, or when we see what was like in the news, that these people are in conferences or they're in a parliament and some of them are nodding off, it has that impact that I think maybe some of them have had their time. They should really be rested. They should, I don't want to mention names, but there's so many of them that when you think of that, I said, look, it's high time maybe some of them, okay, we can keep the president. But then there are people who are within the same age categories, in their late 70s, or even others are approaching maybe 70 or so. Somewhere along the way, it's like they would have been in a different area. You've seen this cut words in the newspapers and so on, and it doesn't really make good seeing that people in high positions should be listening to a president's speech in a budget, for example, but half of them are asleep. Even members of parliament, I would have suggested some of them put an age limit on that. Seriously, not just for NRM, but for the entire members of parliament. If I had my way, because if you have that structure where people are more active, there's an age where you are more active and you're more determined to achieve certain things. And there's an age where you think, this is time for me to relax, I've done enough.
I think at some point, the president will look at that. As I said, our president listens to different people. If he believes there's a problem with leaders at over a certain age, leading ministries and what, I think he will change. But for now, let's wait and see what happens after the 2021 elections and see what he decides to do. I would like to thank those leaders you're saying are over a certain age, because they've actually delivered. People talk about the dozing, and I've seen people dozing in British Parliament. I've seen people dozing. So it's probably a general problem to everyone.
But it's not. It's really not as much as our case is different, because if it's seen in more than if it's seen more than 3, 4, 5 times, and it's seen that there is it's like. Well, it has happened here as well, but you're looking at 1 or 2 individuals. But over there, you're practically looking at an entire, not an entire parliament as such, but so many people of them are nodding off. So it doesn't give a very good picture to an outsider who is watching this.
And I think also the problem of fake news, Photoshop coming up. I've seen pictures of people being photoshopped. Uganda, just like any other country, is facing a problem of fake news and Photoshop. So I would caution you not to believe whatever you say.
You're becoming Donald Trump now. You're entering Donald Trump's territory.
The fake news.
To him, everything is fake news.
The fake news and the Photoshop is not only affecting the Americans, it's also affecting the Ugandans. Recently, you saw Donald Trump is a picture when I think he was turning, or I mean, it was I don't know, and the picture wasn't real. So and I've seen some pictures being manufactured and showing 20 people sleeping in a row, and that's the era of fake news and Photoshop.
These were pictures taken by the Ugandan government parliamentary team, so they can't really be fake news if it is the Uganda television taking the pictures. It's the only they are the only cameras allowed in parliament, so they can't really be fake news if it's if it was another television channel, maybe yes, but this is Ugandan television. So to me, I think
I still call it fake news.
Yeah.
I still call it fake news.
no, somebody should be dismissed from Uganda television then, if that comes in. Now, obviously, there is internationally, as far as Uganda is concerned, the image itself is very good. There's a lot that has been talked about in terms of investment, in terms of what's going on and what has improved and so on. How do you see the next 5 years? Okay, let's go through the elections and Museveni wins. What else is going to happen as a member of the political party? What do you expect to come up in years to come? What's new in terms of what should we expect?
What should they expect?
Yeah.
Better health care system. We've had news coming that they're trying to change the education curriculum to make sure that what students are taught is what actually is going to benefit the community, which will probably fight unemployment. As you know, people have been doing a lot of what they call social, when they're taught things that actually we've been producing more job seekers rather than actually more job creators.
Okay.
And I think in the next 5 years, I expect to see more job creators being created through universities and then the job seekers. People actually more job creators rather than more job seekers. So yeah. So the healthcare, I've talked about that, and we're going. I think we've got opportunities of bringing in health investors to invest in health. The security of the region is actually improving. As we talk now, there are not that many wars around Uganda. So the number of refugees that have been coming to Uganda using our healthcare system will be returning to their countries. Uganda faces a problem of health tourists, just like England is also struggling, people coming in to use their healthcare system without actually contributing to the system. So Uganda still has a major problem of people coming from neighboring countries to use their hospitals, and they haven't contributed to the economy, and they haven't paid any taxes in that. So once the neighboring countries are safe, these people will probably go back to their countries, and our healthcare systems will be for Ugandans who are actually contributing to the economy. And
the problem of Rwanda and Uganda, do you see that being a future problem? Because they went to Angola, they had a long discussion in Angola, they made agreements in Angola, they came back, they teared up the agreements. What's going on?
If there is someone I trust to be my best negotiator is actually, as I said, is President Museveni.
Yeah.
We have ministers in the Ugandan government who are actually ex-rebels, and he's actually told them to come back and start with them and work with them. The likes of Honorable Moses Ali were ex-rebels. He's actually worked with them, and I think the problem with Rwanda is actually a small thing that he will sit down with his fellow president, and that will be sorted. I don't see it as a big problem. Yeah. So it will be sorted.
But it was sorted in Angola. That's the problem. And
it will be sorted with time. I mean, you have to go through different stages for something to be concluded.
Yeah.
So as I said, I trust him. He's working with people who actually are rebelling against him.
Yeah.
And he's shown that he can actually work with his former enemies. So Rwanda is something small. That will be sorted there.
I like the way you're putting it. Rwanda is something small.
That's something small that will definitely be dealt with, and I have no worry about that at all.
You have no worry about...
Yeah. I mean, if someone can work with someone who is actually fighting to remove him from government, then what is it all about sitting down with his colleague and sorting out a few things? Those are small differences that will be sorted out, I believe, with time. Yeah.
I don't view it. I view it more like an issue which is not just going to stop, but it will be a continuation. There is the tit for tat. What do you think could have been the problem, the problem that caused that issue? What could have been the problem that caused that issue?
I wouldn't want to comment on security issues because security is something that's complicated and
it's something complicated.
Complicated that actually can't be. You know, when you discuss issues concerning security, I don't want to give viewers.
I feel kind of what?
I don't want to give viewers things that are actually not facts. I'd rather. That's another topic. I'll probably have to do homework and see how things are going before actually I can comment on it.
We're coming towards the end of the program, and there are quite a number of messages that have come here. There's a lady by the name of Nava who says, if they can't let Ugandans abroad get passports through online, why can't they let them vote too? Because they know they don't have support from Ugandans abroad. That's Nava, and then there's Iga Barnabas, who says, due to excitement of Gambians remove Jamal. This is a different, I think he was talking about something else, commenting about the war in Libya. Obviously Uganda is very different. Somebody says, well done, they need to invest in apprenticeship programs and tightest institutions where in their skills. Somebody says that. Thank you Omega TV for, thank you Omega Live TV for the program. Yeah, somebody just thanking the station. So a few comments, and somebody just put a cartoon there. Well, Johnson Chambade, Losias Joy Chiwito are all watching, and they say thank you for what you're saying. Lots of propaganda. Somebody says that. Love Karunji. Well, a number of several messages people that have been sent. Nothing totally negative as such, as sometimes we do here. We've got less than 5 minutes to go before the program ends, and I want to find out, you've talked about there are no threats at all to what is going to happen during the next generation. But if there is, for example, the president loses the elections, there isn't anything like, there's a lot of confidence that he's going to win. But if he loses, in case he loses, what happens?
I think it's clear that the Uganda, the UPDF is actually working in the interest for all Ugandans and not working in the interest of President Museveni. So whoever wins, I believe the UPDF, the Uganda police, and everyone will work with him. As I said, President Museveni fought for democracy.
What is he going to do if he loses?
I think if he loses, he'll go back to Rachitula and let whoever wins. But that is it. I don't see that happening. Looking at my prediction is we'll win by 80% because we've done more than we did last time. The thing is, every election we bring more on table, and we prove to Ugandans that actually this is what we're doing. I personally went to the same school with Robert Chagolanyi, and I'm actually happy that I sat in the same government school, the same government school funded by NRM that made Chagolanyi is the same school I went to, and the same investments the same security that has encouraged him to invest in his music and what was bought by NRM. And I think that's another bonus. So it's good that someone like him has come up during the NRM regime. We went to the same schools funded by NRM. He's done whatever he's done. He's practiced his right to do whatever he's doing under the NRM, and he's safe, and nothing has happened to him like what is happening to our neighbors. So I think that's a bonus,
Okay, I just want to say thank you very, very much for coming and telling us all about the next election, and I do hope that when we invite you again for another show on our TV here, you'll be able to come. I have to say something. I think most of us, most of you, especially people watching us, that we are very, very, very happy every now and then. But we also want you to visit our website and Omega TV Live, so that you see the kind of range of things that we have here in our media house. There are quite a lot of them that if I'm to sit here and go through what we go through every day,